What's up, guys? I just wanted to drop in real quick before the interview starts and say thank you for 200 subscribers here on 504 and more. It's been an incredible journey that we've had here on the channel. I mean, the last video that we had is almost at 2,000 views, and that it's topped anything I've ever done here on YouTube or podcasting in general. So I'm so thankful for all the support. Make sure to leave a like rating on the video. It helps with the YouTube algorithm a bunch. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. And turn on that post notifications bell so you never miss an upload. A lot of big things coming in the month of July, and I'm excited to share that with all of you. Until then, enjoy the interview with Mike Hoss and leave in the comment section your expectations for the New Orleans Saints in the 2021 season. Welcome into 504 and more, and today on the channel, I would like to welcome the brand new play-by-play announcer for the New Orleans Saints on WWL Radio, Mr. Mike Hoss. Mike, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fine, Jonathan. Look forward to having this, and I know you're busy, and so I'm glad we could work this out.
So thankful you can come and join in, and there's so much I want to jump into, but of course, I want to hop into the main topic at hand. First off, so how excited are you to be calling games next to Deuce McAllister as the new voice of the Saints?
I'm not sure you can put words to it, to be honest. I mean, I've been in broadcasting for a long time, so this is a chapter that I'd always wanted to have in my book, but never really thought it would happen. So it's a culmination of a very long journey, and I'm honored and humbled and cannot wait to sit next to Deuce and listen to him really, analyze the plays and the team and the game. So I'm just really looking forward to doing it, and so yeah, it's a dream come true.
How much has Jim Henderson influenced your journey throughout your time in the media?
Very much. I mean, when I came to New Orleans, Jim was the sports director at Channel 4. And so not initially, but soon thereafter, became the weekend anchor. And, watching him, first off, from a television aspect, he is not your typical sports anchor. He never has been. And really, when he was breaking into TV in the 80s, he was really not your typical sports anchor. I mean, that was back when they were loud and throwing fake bricks at the camera, and it was stick, and he is not stick. So from a television aspect, it really kind of opened my eyes to a wider berth of kind of who you can be, what you can be, because he was different. He's very, very intelligent, was an English teacher prior to TV. And then I also had the opportunity to watch him and work with him. Channel 4 at the time, we did the preseason games. I don't mean like we, Jim and Archie. I mean, it was our camera people, our directors, our production staff. We did the games top to bottom. Jim and Archie did play-by-play, and I was on the field as a satellite person. So I watched the process, watched him prepare. And then, so that was for the preseason, and then literally watched him prepare for 12 years, to do Saints football, as well as, he did some national NFL games in the middle of that for a couple of years, and really saw what it takes to really be prepared. And this is back in the day when you didn't just get to go Google Buffalo Bills offense week 7. There was no internet, and you had to wait for the facts of the NFL, FAX, and facts from the team, and you might get that on Tuesday and Wednesday. So it was a different ball game back then, and so I learned a great deal from a television standpoint and from a preparation standpoint for this job.
Well, before we go ahead and talk about the Saints of today, I want to go ahead and talk about some times of the Saints from the past, especially a moment that you might remember a little more clearly than me. I was reading an article on ESPN that talked about a young Payton Manning who came to Saints training camp his junior year of high school. It was throwing passes with you in Lionel B. Avenue. What do you remember about Payton Manning around that time, and what did you see in him when it comes to football talent and how he'd be able to translate that into a Hall of Fame career?
Well, it was we were in La Crosse, Wisconsin, and Payton was in high school. And so he was at Newman. So he came up with his dad, just a chance to visit with the team. And so he just needed some work, And so Lionel and I and a bunch of the sports guys, we were probably 26, 27, 28. So we thought, dude, we're prime of our career here. We're athletes, but we all played, we can do this. And we went out there, and it looked like we were 50. Payton was, he'd go, all right, go run 20, do an out. And we would do that. And he would just, sit there and wait for us. And then he would fire this thing that was like a rocket. And he was already like, 6 inches taller than us. And he was skinnier back then. It wasn't, he didn't have the bulk that he had. And, and if you did like a down and in, you did a 10-yard pass, he was going to break a finger. And he wouldn't even throw it hard. So we were like, whoa. I mean, it really kind of opened your eyes. When you watch like the game on television or even in person, you don't get a feel until you really see it, touch it, feel it. And yeah, so, I was like just blown away at his athletic ability beyond certainly what he would get every night sitting at the dinner table with Archie, Eli, Cooper, so, and, now he brought that, that's typical classic Payton. He brought that back up when the Saints were in West Virginia at the Greenbrier. And he was talking about how that really propelled him. So it's just classic Payton, just, tongue in cheek, but he's a, it was that moment that I kind of learned more about Payton, but I think we learned more about ourselves. Oh my God, we're in terrible shape. This is sad, but he's an impressive athlete. He played basketball. People forget he played. He played basketball in high school. He was good.
The Mannings were athletes all around.
All of them, yeah.
And you've been covering the Saints for a long time, and a big era in Saints football was, of course, the Jim Mora era. And I wanted to ask you, what was one of your favorite stories of Jim Mora heading up the Saints?
Post game or practice rants, or kind of?
I mean, anything. I mean, I'm open to anything.
He was. I'll try to make it quick. He was. My favorite post game of Mora. I've been to most of them. Was actually a practice in lacrosse. And he was talking, we were asking about sacks or something. And he was like, and it's, you've seen it. He goes, you think you know, but you don't know. And you never will. You think you know what's good, and you think you know what's bad, and you don't know. And you never, and it was like, because he was, in a sense, he wasn't mad. He was just kind of pointing it out. And he was 100% correct if you kind of think about it during the day. I mean, if a defensive lineman was stunting, then he didn't stunt, and he leaves his other D lineman out to pasture, and we blame that defensive lineman because we don't know the guy's supposed to stunt and didn't stunt. So he really kind of, that, was a kind of oh yeah, it makes perfect sense. And certainly the media of today knows we're able to know more about the game and play calling and stuff that we never really talked about back then. We never talked hardly about cover two and different types of techniques. And then my other favorite story was when I did his coaching show for like 3 years in the early 90s, and they weren't good. It was bad. It was on Saturday night, and he was tough. He didn't like the media, and that was during it was right at the beginning of free agency. And the Saints would lose Morton, Sam Mills, and all losing to teams that they would have to play. And so I would do this show, and he didn't like the fact that I would ask, okay, you're playing against Sam Mills or Morton, whatever, Bobby. He didn't like that. I was like, well, I have to, how can I do a half-hour show and not ask you that you're going up against Sam Mills? And so it was kind of a battle. And then we would tape the show on Thursday nights. So one night, I brought my wife down. My show wasn't my wife at the time, she was my girlfriend, because we would go out to dinner after the show. And he used to sit before the show, he would just sit in this chair like this. He would just sit there. There's no chit chat, no nothing. We would just sit there and go, we ready? And then when my wife came down, like they became friends. And like he was nice. From that moment on, and this was probably 93, from that moment on, he was a different, I brought her every week, by the way. She was mandatory every week. He was a different person. He came to our wedding. I've been to, we went and had, saw him at his place in Destin one time, just quickly. But I mean, it's just funny to me. And then he became a part, now he's a part of the media, and he kind of really bristled, with this for so long. So, the classic post-game stuff, that was, those two instances to me were like, my girlfriend, now wife, saved me so much, and I will forever be thankful. But we get along. I see him all the time now. So we're friends.
You've covered a lot of eras of Saints football, and this question, it comes up a lot when it comes to Saints fans. Among the all-time New Orleans Saints roster, who would make your New Orleans Saints Mount Rushmore?
Ooh, that's a good question. I certainly, Drew, Ricky, Jackson. I'd put Deuce up there because he's a part of this. He's in the fabric of this team, And I don't know how I don't know how you leave Morton off. He's in the Hall of Fame. I mean, you know what I mean? You can. That's three of your more older generation players. And Drew, I mean, I think eventually you're going to have Mike and Alvin up there. But if you had to look at right now, and I'm sure I'm leaving off somebody big. Willie Rofe could be up there. I mean, it's tough. It'd have to be a bigger mountain. Let's put it that way. Four's not enough. Four's not enough. But people that are in the Hall of Fame, it's hard to go, how do you not get on the Saints Mount Rushmore if you're in the NFL Hall of Fame?
Well, we got to go ahead and transition now to the Saints of today. And we're going to talk about some of the hot topics leading into training camp and the season. And first off being, of course, the biggest burning question is the quarterback competition. So Jameis Winston, Taysom Hill, how do you see this faring through training camp, and who do you think is going to end up starting week 1?
It's hard, I think it's going to be a legitimate battle. I think we're never going to know. Sean Payton's never going to tell us, I don't think. I think we'll go into the Green Bay game on the Wednesday prior, and it's probably when we'll learn who the starter is. There's only 3 preseason games. I mean, the simple answer is because we haven't seen him. We haven't. Training camp's not for a couple of weeks, but if you believe in Jameis, and if you believe Sean believes in Jameis, then you kind of get to keep the offense that you have, but now you've got a mobile quarterback. And if Taysom wins job, and if he does, then it's a completely new ball game, new everything. So, I think that Sean likes enough. And this is my opinion. I haven't talked to Sean, but likes enough what he's seen in Jameis. And I think that year of in between Tampa and the Saints, and him on the sidelines with Drew and Taysom and Sean and Carmichael is so beneficial. Also, he looks like a different person. Like, he didn't look like the guy that was in Tampa.
Oh, absolutely.
He's lean, and he was a good teammate last year. My impression of Jameis Winston kind of, I was like, man, he was a really good guy and a good teammate. And I didn't know him in Tampa, but So if you ask me right now who I think is going to be a starter, I would say probably Jameis.
I'm pretty sure you've seen the videos of Jameis working out in the offseason with all the receivers like Traquan, and he also has been working out with Adam Trautman, who this year he's destined to take in a lot more touches, stepping into that tight end 1 role. How do you think he will fare coming into his second season with this much added volume?
Yeah, that's you have to kind of look at players, and we either say step up or breakout year for this year. I mean, Trautman's in that realms. He and Nick Vannett, because when you lose Jared Cook and Josh Hill, that was 54 catches and 8 touchdowns. So that's got to come from somewhere. Certainly, Trautman looked great last year, and it was his first year, and he wasn't the number 1 guy all the time. So yeah, he is going to have to make a bigger stride than most of your second-year guys. And then Nick Vannett's going to have to really contribute as well. Tight ends play such a huge role in this offense, assuming this offense stays relatively the same. But yeah, I think he's going to have to step up more than most second-year players. But that position in general, when you've lost that, kind of with Cook and Hill, and once you've lost, you're going to have to replace it. So those guys will have to step up. Yeah.
Well, you mentioned breakout seasons, and we were specifically talking about the tight ends, but is there anybody else either on the offense or the defensive side that you can see having a breakout year and turning into an all-pro caliber type of player?
I think offensively, I had to do this. I'm looking through some paperwork because I had to do this for the radio station last week. We were talking about breakout players or potential, who needs to have a breakout season. Who do you expect? And I think Traquan Smith is on that list of who kind of needs to. He's he's coming into his 4th year. This is the end of his contract, and so he's a 3rd-round pick. And we saw flashes of him, but I think he needs to be more consistent. I think he's averaging like 2 catches a game. last year, and that's not enough. I mean, he needs somebody. This team needs somebody opposite Michael Thomas to take the heat off of Michael Thomas. And so Marquez Callaway, I think, is in the same boat. I think he showed these flashes of, wow, this kid has got talent. And so those two offensively, defensively, certainly Marcus Davenport, just because of where he was drafted. Saints took it the fifth year option on him. So, and there's people behind him, Peyton Turner, I think David Onyemata on the inside. I think certainly because of who they've lost in the interior defensive line with Shelton and Malcolm, David's going to need, he's been solid, but who's going to, they're fine on the edge, certainly with Jordan, Cam, but when you lose Trey Hendrickson, and they've lost some players, and from the secondary, losing Janoris Jenkins, who's going to be that other corner? It's the same PJ, P-Rob, CJ Gardner Johnson. I mean, it's kind of the same names we've had out there. So who's going to be that guy that can help out Marshawn Lattimore? And is Malcolm Jenkins going to be, again, one of your safeties? Marcus Williams, certainly with a huge contract. So then there's a lot of question marks on the defense, but I still think it's a pretty good defensive unit. And offensively, I think I kind of agree with Mickey. Mickey, you talked about it's not a rebuild, it's a retool, because you've lost some parts, and certainly Drew Brees is at the top of that list. But I just don't automatically believe that this is not a playoff team. I think this is a playoff team, and so the question is, what's a playoff team? Is that 9-8 now, 10-7? I don't even know what 10-7 still. Like, is that a good year? 10-6 we consider it a good season. What's 10-7? Does 10-7 get you in the playoffs? It should, but you've lost, So I think it's a playoff team, but they've got actually, some cash to play with. Who would have thought we'd be sitting here, 2 weeks before camp and them having $10 million to kind of go out if they see a hole, if they see a guy come available in the secondary, maybe a linebacker or an interior defensive line, they go get him.
Well, you mentioned the $10 million in cap room that we do have, and there's been rumors going around on the Saints looking at guys like Drake Kirkpatrick or Richard Sherman, also guys that have been on the roster before, like Quan Alexander. So what's the likelihood you seeing the Saints and Mickey Loomis going out to get another free agent before the season starts?
I think they will. And usually what happens is it's never any of the people we talk about. It's like draft day. It's never it's never the guys that we talk about. But I think, certainly the 2022 cap they're already not in great shape. Who is really? But so you can take that 10 and put it kind of start 22, with a little cushion to put that towards the 22 money. But I think if they see a DB out there, and there'll be DBs that come available cut days that they think can help them, whether it's a veteran or a young player, and maybe that's the same thing with an interior defensive line or maybe a wideout. I think they could go. I wouldn't see two guys, but I could see them getting one guy and spending some of that money.
How much more of a challenge do you think that it will be this year for the Saints to compete in the NFC South, given how Tampa Bay performed last year and being able to capture a Super Bowl? You have Carolina bringing in a new quarterback with Sam Darnold, and then Atlanta, they make some moves to not only put guys like Calvin Ridley into the limelight, but also bringing in guys like Kyle Pitts that are going to be matchup nightmares for the Saints.
Anybody.
Oh, yeah.
Anybody.
Around the NFL, anybody's going to have trouble guarding guys like that. How do you think they're going to fare in the NFC South?
I think the question marks is that we know Tampa, right? I mean, Tampa, unbelievably, because Super Bowl teams rarely get everybody back. So the fact that they got everybody back is astounding to me. So we know what they have. We know what they are. Carolina and the Saints in Atlanta are question marks. Atlanta has always had great talent. I mean, look at the talent they've had for the last 10 years. They just can't put it together. Coaching, Matty Ryan, I mean, it's just that nothing seems to click with them. So, I mean, they're not a bad football team. They're a good football team. But they've always been a good football team. They just have bad records. Carolina, who knows? I mean, is Sam Darnold the guy? Is he going to be, can he get this fresh start post Jets? So I think, I think it'll be between the Saints and Tampa for the NFC South. I mean, I just think, and Tampa, I mean, when I'd have to look, I don't remember the specifics. I remember when the Saints beat Tampa last year, that second game. I don't know, Tampa fell to 5 and something. It was embarrassing. It was a brutal game. Tampa looked like they were done. And so you look at that Tampa team that the Saints humiliated in Tampa compared to the Tampa team they became. And you wonder, well, are they going to pick right back up where they left off from the Super Bowl? I mean, they're not unbeatable. I just feel like Tampa and the Saints will be there. I think the Saints are, they're a question mark to everybody else, which that hasn't happened since 2006. That other teams right now are going, well, what do we look at film-wise for the Saints? What do we do? We've had 10,000 hours of Drew Brees film to look at. Now what do we do? So yes, maybe we don't know what this offense is going to look like, but guess what? Neither does anybody else. So, and that's something that this team has not enjoyed in 13 years. So, longer than that. So it's going to be, the preseason is going to be interesting because I don't know how they'll attack 3 games. There used to be first quarter, first half, into the third game, then fourth game sit. So I don't know how they'll attack 1, 2, 3. I don't, with a 17 game season, that's 20 games. I just don't, I don't think we're going to know a lot in preseason. Sean's not going to show anything in preseason that leads us to believe anything that we could expect against the Packers.
Training camp is going to be really telling. But again, Mike, I want to thank you for your time. It's been a pleasure to talk to you. And before we go ahead and sign out, is there anything you want to say to the Saints fans watching?
Hey, I just want to say thank you. The support since I have been named for this position has been unbelievable. And so, quite frankly, the expectations are too high. I'm honored. I think I'm going to have some fun. And because it's happening where it is in my career, I know I'll be prepared and ready. And I'm just happy and excited to get going. And the support has been just unbelievable. And, I don't want to let anybody down. I don't want to let Deuce down, the radio station or the Saints. And so this is my work, it's just prep, I'm like cramming for a final exam. That's really not for a few weeks, but it's about being ready and being prepared. So I appreciate the time. And, if you ever need anything, give me a call.
Oh, of course. And we know you're going to do just great. We can't wait to hear you in the booth this season. Again, Mike Halls, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
All right. Thanks, John.